Okay, wine number two, also from Uco Valley in Argentina. So when I was at Eduardo's, I said, "Hey, look, here's where we're staying. Where else should I go? Who else should I try to taste with this afternoon?" So they said, uh, "Call D-Bay." D-Bay gave me D-Bay's phone number. D-Bay is a wonderful woman who runs a tasting room called Casa de Chacras. And it's a tasting room that's shared by two wineries, Lupa and BIRA. Again, this beautiful house from the 1870s in the middle of a small town in Mendoza, outside of the city of Mendoza and Mendoza Valley, had been abandoned for over 20 years and restored by these two wineries to use as a tasting room, because a lot of the vines and vineyards and wineries are out in the middle of nowhere. They're not really near any place that people want to kind of get to all that easily. So I happened to be staying just 5 minutes from this place that hadn't even been officially opened yet to the public, and called her up, and she was nice enough to stay and do a tasting of both portfolios. And one of the winemaker from Lupa, the owner of Lupa, happened to be stopping by, so I got to spend time with him. His wines are not imported yet in the U.S., but he also tried these BIRA wines. And BIRA is a winery that's owned by two friends, Bernasconi and Iskro, and BIRA stands for Bernasconi and Iskro Repubblica of Argentina, BIRA. Both are of Italian descent, as many people are in Argentina, third, fourth generation. And both were lovers of Italian wine and had worked with wineries in other parts of Argentina, other parts of the world. In Italy, one of them worked for Bodega Chacra, which is a fabulous winery in southern Argentina that was restored by one of the big Barolo families. So we got to taste through in this amazing home again that's going to be open to the public soon. These beautiful wines, but this one really struck me, and I was so glad I was able to find it. It's called Alla Memoria di Nicolo Brunetto. It has an amazing story, and you can see that that's a boat, and that's a boat that Bernasconi's grandfather and granduncles came over on from Italy. They were all underaged. They had no money. And on that trip, the cook on the boat, Nicolo Brunetto, took care of them and fed them. And they never saw him again the rest of their lives, but they always remembered his name. It went down in family lore. And to show that gratitude, this wine is showing that connection back to the old country. This wine is named after them. You can even see the two people in gold there standing on the dock. You see that right here in the corner, right? That's pretty cool, right? Right down there. So, see, cool. Anyway, what's really interesting about this wine is that it's Sangiovese. Sangiovese, some of the first Italians that came over were winemakers, and Sangiovese was a very important grape. A lot of it got pulled up, though, in the 1970s to make way for Bordeaux-style grapes, which everyone thought the world wanted after that Judgment of Paris. So, and that is how Malbec started to become king in Argentina. But the Sangiovese vines are, I think they're about 60, 70 years old. And it's also blended. So 80% Sangiovese, old vine Sangiovese, blended with 10% Merlot and 10% Syrah. Also pretty old vines from what I understand. This is a really beautiful wine. This is probably very similar to a Chianti Classico. It's got that sour cherries and earthiness and mushrooms and just a touch of oak. And I would have this with a richer pasta dish with like a tomato meat sauce. I would have it with grilled meat. I would have it if you want a great immigrant story to tell. I mean, this is really a fascinating story that Nicolo Brunetto was a name that the family remembered for generations, and they decided to name a wine after them. Another one of the wines in the portfolio from BIRA is called Tano, because a lot of the immigrants came over from Naples. They were Napolitano, similar to some of my Italian heritage. And the phrase that they were referred to was Tano, and I don't think it was necessarily a slur, but also wasn't a compliment either. So we'll call it somewhere in between the two, probably leaning more toward a slur. but one of the wines they decided to name too, again, to show this heritage of coming and being here in Argentina for for now 3-4 generations. The other wine they have is called Tano, which I thought was kind of interesting. But the Nicolo Brunetto is a beautiful wine, highly rated. It was one of my favorite wines that I tasted that day in that tasting room, tasting house, I should say. It really is a house, and pretty fascinating place. And again, and not a whole lot of it made it here into the New York metro area, so I was glad we were able to grab a bunch of it and share it, share the immigrant story, if you will, because it's a story that a lot of our families have who've been here for a while. So cheers.